everyone, and welcome back to The Business Edge. I'll be your host, Erin Blake, and today I am joined with Gail Yosh, clinical specialist and communications professional in the Department of Information Management and Business Analytics. We'll be discussing the importance of communication in business and how to engage and inspire people around you. Gail, thank you for being here today, and let's get started.
Erin, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. So today I'd like to share something that I teach in my business communications course here at Montclair State University. And it's the topic of communicating yourself in a way that inspires and engages people to want to do business with you, to want to work with you, to just want to be around you, and how that impacts your success in the workplace or in any space that you occupy. So this is for business people, business students, or anyone really who just wants to make the most of the best skill that we have as humans, which is interpersonal communications. That skill is something that we should all hone and realize how much power is in that skill. Because think about this, the words we use inspire people in ways that have lasting results. And our purpose here in anything we do is to leave something behind, right? So when we communicate with people, when we do whatever we do passionately, we want to affect change around us. We want to make a difference. Because let's face it, we're not leaving this earth with any possessions. We are leaving behind a legacy. And don't we want to use this wonderful skill for the greatest power? And I don't mean power like to change the world or to wield it in a crazy way. I just mean to leave behind something so effective. So how do you do this? I, several years ago, became familiar with Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, if anyone wants to Google him or doesn't know about him. Several years ago, he is a motivational speaker, author, and business consultant. Several years ago, he came up with something, a book actually, called Start With Why. And it was based on something he called the Golden Circle. So I'll explain a little bit about this. He talks about everyone in business can learn the ability to speak and engage people in a way that inspires them to want to do business, like I said, or just simply be a part of what they do. So he came out with this idea called the Golden Circle. I'll describe it for the listeners. You can easily Google it online, but picture 3 circles. There's an outer circle, and the word what is in that circle. There's a middle circle, and the word how is in that circle. And in the center is the word why. Now, most people, when someone asks you, oh, what do you do? Say, Erin, what do you do? And you would say, oh, I am. And you follow that up with what? I am a student at Montclair State. I am a consultant. I am a professor. But few people start with why they do what they do. And in business, people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. That's what Simon Sinek says. People aren't inspired by what you do. They're inspired by why you do what you do. And when you start with that why, you entice them. You leave a bit of your uniqueness behind that only you can give because it's your why. It's what you do. And that has lasting effects. So in his book, Simon gives some examples that I'd like to share with you, actually. So let's talk about going back to August 28th, 1963. 250,000 people descended on the Mall in Washington, D.C. to hear Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. give his I Have a Dream speech, which truly changed the course of the civil rights movement in our country, and it's our history. How is it that Dr. King did this in a time when there was no social media to check the date? In the hot summer sun, people traveled far to see him. How did that happen, and why was it him? Now, of course, he was a phenomenal, unbelievable orator. But other people were wonderful at that as well. And at that time of great civil unrest in our society, so many people were talking about what had to change in our nation. But Dr. King went around and said why it needed to change. He didn't talk about what. He didn't talk about how. He talked about why it needed to change, because he believed that there's 2 laws, really. The laws of man and the laws of a higher power. And it wasn't until those 2 laws were the same or equal that we can live in a just society. So in that hot summer sun, he spoke and he said, I have a dream. And if anyone listening hasn't heard that speech, please do check it out because you will get chills. He talks about, I have a dream. And he says, I have a dream that my 4 children will live in a nation where they will be judged not on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. I'm a parent. I get chills just thinking about that. Everyone feels that. So when you communicate in a way that people feel what you feel, they're inspired to be a part of your leadership and a part of what you want to do. And then great things happen when you work together with people. Simon Sinek also gives another example. Turn of the last century, early 1900s, a man named Samuel Pierpont Langley was tasked by the War Department to create a man-made flying machine. He was a very smart man, Harvard educated, had everything at his disposal that the government gave him. I believe it was $50,000 at the time, was so much money. Had the brightest minds to work with him, and he was told to create this man-made flying machine. And a couple hundred miles away, two brothers also had that dream to create this man-made flying machine, and they were inspired to think, what could happen if the skies turned into roads? How amazing would that be, and what that would do to us as the human race, right? So they got to work every day, and these two men were not educated. I believe maybe they had a high school education. And they went around town and they inspired some people to join their cause. And they worked out of their bicycle shop. They were technically adept. And as the story goes, and as Simon Sinek would say in his presentation, they would go to work every day and bring 5 spare parts with them to work, because that's how many times their apparatus would crash before they had to return home for supper. And on December 17th, 1903, two brothers saw their man-made flying machine take flight. It didn't go far, it didn't stay up long, but they created flight. And what do you think Samuel Pierpont Langley did when he found out that they did that? Did he say, I could do that better? I can make it better than that, guys? He quit. He quit because he couldn't be first, he couldn't be famous. He wasn't inspired by a greater cause. He was inspired by the what, not the why. So it's a wonderful example of how does that happen? How do people, given the same skills and ability, how does one person or one group of people do something that others can't? So when Simon Sinek looked at this, he said, there's something to this. There's this idea that these people are inspiring people by how they communicate. And they're communicating their why, not what they want to do, but why it's so important to do that. Simon Sinek also talks about companies that have done this. So we think about Apple. When Apple hit the scene, they didn't come out like every company and just say, hey, we're a computer company. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, easy to use, and user-friendly. Try one. Instead, they came out and they said, we seek to challenge the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. We do that by making computers that are beautifully designed, easy to use, and user-friendly. They happen to be great computers. Try them. And we did. And they were absolutely that. Easy to use, beautifully designed. So when a computer company came out with an MP3 player, we didn't scratch our heads and say, well, why would I buy that from a computer company? We knew it would be beautifully designed, easy to use, and user-friendly, and the iPod was. And when a computer company came out with a cell phone, we didn't scratch our heads and say, well, why would I buy a cell phone from a computer company? I mean, would you buy a Dell cell phone or a Xerox cell phone? But we said, oh my gosh, the iPhone, because we knew it would be something amazing. So Apple is a testament to how they communicated what they believe and their purpose, and that resonates with certain people. I mean, you're either an iPhone user or you're not, right? You identify with that product. So this concept, as Simon Sinek would say, perfectly overlays with the human brain. So if you look at this golden circle where the outer two rings, the what and the how, that actually overlays perfectly with the neocortex of our brain, which responds to rational things like numbers and analytical stuff. But we like to think that we're rational beings, that we make decisions based on facts and figures and numbers. But we don't. We do the limbic part of our brain. We use that limbic part of our brain, which is the inside of our brain. Think of that circle and the why on the inside. It's how we feel. It's our gut feeling. When we have a gut feeling about something, it's not really our gut. It's our limbic brain that says, you know what? When two people are before me interviewing and they have the same skills and the same expertise, I may say, you know what, Erin, there's something about that Erin. I think she's going to fit well on our team. Because you somehow communicated something unique about yourself that resonated with that person, so they feel like they want to have you a part of their team. And that's why this concept is so important, because when you just give more of yourself, instead of just saying, well, I'm an accounting major, I'm interested, for example, in forensic accounting. Why? How about tell the person, ever since I was a child, I like to figure things out. I like to find the reason. I like to investigate. I want to know why something happened, and I want to find the solution. And when you say it like that, people hear your voice, they hear your passion, and all of a sudden they don't just get, oh, you're a accounting major. Oh, this person's passionate about what they do. Our voice changes when we talk about that. I am, and every student of mine can tell you this, get very excited about communications. It's my passion. I happen to get paid for it, and I tell my students I find it to be an extraordinary honor to come to work every day and share my knowledge and what I've learned in my experience with students so that somehow it can change their world for the better. That is my purpose, and everything I do falls underneath that. And I think you feel it too, right? I'm sitting here and I'm just so excited to talk about this. That is what makes the difference. If you can do that on your job, it resonates with people, it's so important, and it truly does change the world around you. So instead of communicating the what, when you go to these networking events and people say, oh, tell me about yourself. Yes, do. Have all the what's behind it. That's the information you need to give them. But please make sure that somehow when you shake their hand, you impart the passion of why you chose what you do. So some students would say, but I don't know. I don't know what my why is. And that's totally fine. Most people don't, right? People are spending their whole life trying to find that out. So then I would ask a student this, well, what do you like to do? One student said, I like to play video games. What kind of video games? I like to play the war games. Why? Ask yourself, why do you like that? Well, he said, I like to move the pieces and make sure that I have all the soldiers moving in the correct direction, and I like to see the long-range plan. And I said, oh, so you like to manage resources and you like to strategic plan. Know that about yourself, because on the job, whatever your title is, you'll enjoy doing that. If that's what you do, you'll like your job. So I was giving this presentation to some non-business majors, and one student said, I want to be a doctor. And I said, why? And she said, because ever since I was a kid, I would line up my stuffed animals and I would take care of them, kind of like a Doc McStuffins, right? I would take care of them and make sure they're okay and put Band-Aids on them. And I said, that's wonderful. Know that about yourself. Because what if in life, for some reason, you can't get into medical school or something happens, and I don't wish that upon anybody. But what if you can't get the title you think you want? There are myriad ways in life that you can fulfill your desires and passions with many different titles, as long as you're doing what satisfies your passion and your why. So when you know that about yourself, the what's just figured itself out. But as long as you're, think about me, I have more recently switched over from being a practitioner to the academic environment. I spent years as a consultant and in corporate. I look back and I think to myself, I have always been a teacher. In high school, I was taught young students how to play tennis. I was on the tennis team and taught young kids how to play tennis. In college, I was a tutor, loved being a tutor. Then I left corporate and became a consultant. And what do consultants do? They help people. They teach people. I was helping small businesses. And then I became an adjunct and thought, oh my gosh, I love this so much. That makes so much sense to me now because that is my passion. That's my why. So I have had different titles in my life, but always I believe I have the heart of a teacher. And that's so special to me to have figured that out because like I said, I go to work every day and it's exciting for me. And you know you found your passion when you say to yourself, I don't care if I even get paid to do this. I just love to do this. And when you think about something, when you don't even have to. So when you're home and your mind's wandering to something, ask yourself why. Because ask yourself always why, because that will get to the heart of the passion that you have. So I encourage anyone listening to think about that. And while I'm on the subject too, let's talk in general about that importance of communication that we started with in the beginning here. We have this unique and amazing ability to use our words to change the world around us for the good and to affect people. And there's nothing better than sitting across from someone and knowing you've made a difference, you've helped them, you've changed them for the better. How do you get good at doing that? Read. Read a lot. And I'm not just saying read in your discipline. Read amazing works by Shakespeare and Wordsworth and all the great poets or anything that inspires you, because when you do that, you learn how to connect with the human existence. And that's what interpersonal communication really is. So I will leave this conversation just by saying again, people aren't inspired by what you do. They're inspired by why you do what you do. So check out Simon Sinek, Sinek, his Start With Why presentation, TED Talk, his book, and find out ways to communicate yourself in any space you occupy in a way that you can share more than just what you do, but give a part of yourself that says to somebody else sitting across from you, tell me more. I want to know more.
Gail, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the topic. As always, please email your topics of interest to felicianobiz@montclair.edu or message us on social media. New discussions will be released soon, so be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Google Play. The Business Edge is brought to you by the Feliciano School of Business at Montclair State University. Until next time, I'm Erin Blake. Thanks for listening.